What is going on, everyone? Griffin here, coming at you with some Scorch gameplay. Today we're going to be talking about the D40. Is it now a viable SMG in Rogue Company? Let's head over and let's talk about it. So in the Bounce House update for Rogue Company, the D40 did receive a pretty substantial buff. So the rate of fire for the weapon was increased from 600 RPM up to 670 RPM. Now, I have talked in the past about the fact that whenever they went in and decided to try to bring the D40 down just a little bit, because it was pretty much the meta weapon ever since the LMPX nerf happened. They reduced the fire rate from 750 down to 600, which was a very significant reduction in the fire rate, which, I mean, it was still viable. You could still use the weapon. You just had to be a little bit more meticulous with the D40C. You had to be a little bit more cautious. You had to play a little bit more passively to be able to be good with the D40, but you were still able to do some very interesting things with the D40. Bounce House update comes out, they buff it up from 600 to 670 RPM, and it's a decent contender for a viable SMG. Now, compared to the other SMGs in the game that we currently have, I would say that it is definitely not the best SMG, and I still feel like it gets outclassed in almost every regard by a lot of the other SMGs. I mean, the Knight does a better job at what it does than the D40, the Objection does a better job at what it does than the D40, and the LMPX still does a better job at range than the D40 currently does. Now, I think that if they would have applied some of the same logic that they had specifically with the Knight in the Bounce House update to the D40 to begin with, and adjusted the fall off values and adjusted the fall off damage that you get from those fall off values, then they could have maintained the fire rate of the weapon and balanced it out to make it a much better weapon overall. At least that's where I see it. I think that it is a decent weapon still. I think that it is good, but the problem with the D40 was there was no downsides to it. You had the range, you had the damage output, you had the control, you had the accuracy. You basically had everything that you needed. It was kind of like they shifted the idea and the identity of the LMPX that existed for a very long time over onto the D40. Of course, you're not getting as much range out of the D40 as you do with something like the LMPX, but the same idea applied. I mean, if you're consistently hitting your shots at around 20 to 30 meters with the D40 and you're still doing a decent amount of damage per shot, then you're not really losing anything. Like, the D40 was just kind of slotted into that meta state. I really feel like that there was a lot that they could do with the weapon. I mean, whenever they started adjusting the weapons earlier this year and trying to re-identify like all of the weapons, specifically the SMGs, they made a lot of changes to those weapons. They reduced the accuracy of the D40, and they reduced the clip size of the D40, but they increased the damage to compensate things like that. Since then, there has been a huge rollback on a lot of those changes, except for specifically the damage values of the D40. The D40 has gotten stronger over time because of them not really adjusting the weapon in the way that they needed to adjust it. If you look at gameplay from, I would say probably around May, June of this year, and go back and look at D40 gameplay footage from 2 or 3 years ago, you would see a huge change in the D40, when in reality, it was one of the most consistent weapons that received the least amount of changes, especially in the SMG category tier overall. I mean, there's been less changes to it than the LMPX, the Objection, the Knight. Overall, I would say the D40 was touched the least. So I don't think that they take a lot of these initial changes that ended up happening with the D40 into consideration. They reduced the magazine size of the weapon, they increased the damage of it, they reduced the accuracy of it, and then whenever they're like, oh, well, we're reverting it back to a 40 round magazine, okay, but we're not adjusting the damage, okay, so that's out of balance, that's out of whack. Oh, we're adjusting the accuracy of the weapon to make it a little bit more consistent and a little bit more accurate, but we're not rolling back the damage values of the weapon. Oh, okay, cool. That's good to know. So they basically took the weapon, they made it worse, they buffed certain aspects of it, and then they reverted the aspects except for some of the major ones, such as the damage. So that's why it's very wild to me that they decided to go the route of reducing the fire rate of the weapon in order to balance it. They could have went in there and they could have legitimately adjusted the damage values and the fall off value percentages for that damage, and they could have made something that was still a familiar weapon with the same fire rate, because once you start tinkering with fire rates, that's when weapons start feeling a little bit less like themselves, right? I mean, let's be honest here. The D40 hasn't felt like itself since they reduced the fire rate. They increased the fire rate, and you know, it's still doing what it does. You know, you can still be good with it, you can still do good things with it, but it's not the D40. You know, when you have a weapon in the game that hasn't been changed in 2 years, and then all of a sudden they're going to start adjusting the fire rate of the weapon, there's something going on here. There's something wrong with it. So I think that they could realistically go in there and up the RPM, adjust the ranges, adjust the fall off damage and the fall off values of the weapon, adjust the fall off overall of the weapon, and I think that it would feel good and it would exist where it needs to exist. Currently the D40 is fine. It's not the D40, but the D40 is fine. But be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on the D40 since the Bounce House update? Have you been running it more? I personally have been running it a little bit more and running into it more so than often in a lot of public matches. So it is very interesting that the community is kind of readopting the weapon. But be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, be sure to check that description for links to Facebook, Discord, and Twitter. Those are the places to contact me. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, then consider hitting that join button to become one of the 256 crew members. Lastly, on Thursdays and also on Sundays, I will be streaming here on YouTube. So if you are interested and available, please feel free to stop by and say hello there. Thanks for watching, guys.
Go here. Enemy over there.
He's right here. Got her.
I've got the objective. Bomb defused. Lethal out.
That's what I'm talking about. Got him, got him. I'm gonna go res fixer.
Need a light.
I shouldn't have pushed that by myself, but it's like 2 of them done now. They got a respawn, so I probably all 3 on.
No freaking way. There's one in the house and one at the sliding door. Good try. Good try.
My fault, bro. GG, bro.
No, you're good, man. Good try, man.